Welcome back. Let's find out how Jotham gets out of this predicament. Jotham began to tremble, and he felt like he was about to throw up. How could he have been so stupid? He had walked into this trap all on his own, and now he was caught here like a rabbit in a snare. He knew if he told them his father's name, they would search him out. If his father had already paid his taxes, they would whip him for not including Jotham in the count of his family. Jotham was quite sure they wouldn't care that his father had no way of knowing he was alive. "Your father's name, boy," the milky white man screamed, no longer smiling. The man's scream was so high he sounded like an animal being butchered, and it scared Jotham so that his legs felt like limp ropes. He could see no escape from these Romans. They were as big as bears, with hands as strong as jackals' jaws. There was nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. Suddenly, Jotham felt like one of those jackal-like hands clamped onto the back of his neck. "The procurator asked you a question, boy," the soldier roared. Jotham felt tears beginning to form behind his eyes, and he wanted to scream. He felt just as helpless and hopeless as he had when he was being auctioned off in front of the whole town back in Engedi. Engedi! Nathan! Suddenly a plan flashed in front of Jotham's eyes, and he saw a bit of hope. A wave of fear swept up through his insides at the thought of what would happen if it didn't work, but he knew it was his only chance. He swallowed hard 3 times and smacked his lips together. Then, wrinkling his face into his most pitiful look, he stared at the milky white man in front of him in the eye. "Please, sir," he said in his best pleading voice, "do you have a cup of water for a poor leper boy?" All the fear in Palestine spread across the man's face, and he stumbled backwards. The soldier that had clamped his hand around Jotham's neck instantly let go and started yelling and waving his hand through the air. All the other soldiers backed away with looks of fear and disgust, and the 3 men at the table almost fell over themselves trying to move away. "Leper!" someone yelled, and suddenly everyone nearby was shouting. The ring of soldiers broke apart, and Jotham saw his chance. Without even thinking, he ran through the hole in the ring, expecting another hand to clamp around his neck at any second. But the fear of leprosy's slow death kept everyone back, and Jotham ran. The crowd parted before him like Moses parting the Red Sea. "Come back here, you devil!" the milky white man screamed. Jotham looked back only once, and he saw that no one was following him. But even so, he didn't slow down as he ran through the narrow, winding streets. He had outrun the crowds of lepers now, and the crowds of people thought he was just a rude little boy. He was running so fast and thinking so hard that he didn't even notice the donkey Eliakim had given him tied up to a post. Nor did he notice the fat, black-toothed woman that Decha had called Mother coming out from a shop. Finally, panting so hard that he thought his lungs would explode, Jotham reached the inn of Hashra. He ran inside and slammed the door behind him, leaning against it as if he could keep out the entire Roman legion all by himself. "You did not see your family?" Hashra asked, looking up from where he was repairing a table. Jotham shook his head. "Well, perhaps tomorrow," Hashra said, returning to his work. "I do not know this Anna you spoke of, but Simeon seems to abide by what she says. Maybe tomorrow I will go with you and speak to the Roman procurator. He could look on his list and see if your father has already been here to pay his taxes." "No!" Jotham yelled and shook his head hard. Hashra looked at him strangely, but did not pursue the matter further, since the inn was full of curious eyes. Jotham helped Hashra and his plump little wife feed lamb stew to the many travelers at the inn that night. Every room was full of people, and Jotham wondered where they would all sleep. But after the meal was finished, he watched as they laid sleeping mats all over the floor from wall to wall. Hashra brought a mat for Jotham and laid it in a corner of the main room, between a fat man who smelled bad and the cool, rough plaster of the wall. "Before you go to sleep," Hashra said, "tell me why you cried out at my suggestion to talk to the procurator." Now, Jotham explained his adventure of the afternoon to Hashra. Hashra laughed heartily and said that perhaps they shouldn't go see the procurator after all. He had promised to help Jotham look the next day, and that made Jotham feel good. As he laid down on his mat and covered himself with his scratchy little blanket, he felt as if he were so close to finding his father He could almost reach out and touch him. Perhaps Hashra was right, Jotham thought. Perhaps tomorrow he would find his family. Jotham yawned and pulled the blanket more tightly around his shoulders. It had been a very long day, and it took him only seconds to fall asleep. Consider, Jotham is excited at being so close to finding his family. Maybe you're excited too, now at how close we are to Christmas. It's been a very long wait. What do you think Jotham has learned from his journey? And what have you discovered in the last few weeks? Christmas is getting so close. See you soon.